Video footage of Donald J. Trump. Comments during the first day of the New York civil trial. The trial for New York Attorney General Letitia James. $250 million. Fraud lawsuit against Trump, 2 of his adult children, and his companies, began Monday, October 2, 2023. Must watch. Happened just now. Enjoy hearing your thoughts. Please leave comments. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, everybody. This is a disgraceful situation. As I say, murders are going on as you stand here. They're wasting everybody's time for many months of this case where banks got paid a fortune, loan money got paid money back, didn't even need their money. We built a great company. We have to go through this. So this just broke, but before I discuss that, why are we trying a case that the Appellate Division of New York State has just ruled recently that we won 80% of our case. And this judge refuses to acknowledge the ruling, which is very plain for all to see. We won, as you know. It had to do with Ivanka, and it had to do with other things. It had to do with the statute of limitations, where they wanted to go back to 200 years ago, 500 years ago. It was limited, very much limited, and it amounted to about 80% of the case was won by us in the Appellate Division. And this rogue judge, a Trump hater, the only one that hates Trump more is his associate up there, his person that works with him. And she's screaming into his ear on almost every time we ask a question. It's a disgrace. You want to know the truth? It's a disgrace. So this rogue judge refuses to acknowledge the fact that we won 80% of this case in the Appellate Division, including statute of limitations. You know, in the statute of limitations, you have a period of time. He wants to go back so far that nobody's ever even heard of such a ridiculous thing. So we won the case in the Appellate Division, and this judge refuses to acknowledge the Appellate Division, meaning he's got contempt for his own court system. Nobody's ever seen that before, where he refuses to even talk about it or acknowledge it. And the Attorney General is she's a corrupt person. A terrible person, driving people out of New York, number one. That's number one. Number two, it just came out a few minutes ago where Palm Beach County, the people that do this, agree with us 100%, and they say the judge is wrong. The judge is wrong in his ruling. He valued Mar-a-Lago at $18 million, and it's worth $1 billion, maybe $1.5 billion. And you saw where various properties that we have that are valued in the financial statements, which is totally subject to the clause that you've all been hearing about doing buyer beware, as they call it. But this just came out. Error in New York civil fraud case against Trump is flagged by industry insiders who say valuation of Mar-a-Lago cited by judge is based on a misunderstanding of basic real estate practice. So they're saying the judge has misunderstood basic real estate practice. I say they're wrong about that. He didn't misunderstand it. This is a rigged court. He's put there to do a job on Trump. Now this comes from highly respected officials in Palm Beach County. Also, apparent mistake by Judge Engoron surfaces in the use of a Palm Beach County appraisal of Mar-a-Lago that, an expert says, is detached from the true value of the property. Now, I don't know the people that we're talking about in Palm Beach County, but they saw this egregious trial, this horrible, horrible trial going on, while at the same time people are being murdered right outside of the streets, and nothing happens to those people that do the murdering. They go after Trump. So this was just released by Palm Beach County, that the judge in this case is wrong. And by the way, he's talking about them. So they're explaining to him that he's wrong. Here's another one, just came out. New York v. Trump could set precedent for the use of New York's overweening executive law. One doesn't have to be a lawyer to see the danger to anyone doing business in the Empire State. Anybody that does business in New York State is crazy. When you have a radical left Attorney General like Letitia James, who's a disgrace to our country, who got elected on the fact that she's going to take down President Trump. We're going to take him down. She knew nothing about me. But she got elected on that basis. And we have others likewise. Take a look at what's going on in Georgia. Take a look at Jack Smith. Take a look at these people. This is called election interference, and worse than that, really much worse than that. And you don't get much worse than election interference, especially we're talking presidential election of 2024. So this judge should change his ruling, because Palm Beach County said he was totally wrong, and he was ruling based on them. He ruled we didn't even have a chance to testify. I got a call last week, sir, we lost part of the case. I said, the trial didn't even start. You know, the trial starts, I guess, today. He ruled that we lost a big part of the case because he's a Democrat club politician. He's a Democrat operative, and he's a disgrace to people that call themselves judges. And I hope my lawyers go in, and I hope they fight him very hard, because this guy's getting away with murder. And his clerk should not be allowed to be in his ear on every single question. You take a look at what's happening with her. She hates Trump more than he does. So that's where it is. We have 80% of this trial has been won. In June, they came down, the end of June, with a decision, a very powerful decision. And it said, on statute of limitations and just about everything else, would you say approximately 80% of the trial?
Yes, sir.
Attorneys, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Approximately 80% of the trials won. He refuses to acknowledge his own appellate division. And I think it's a disgrace to our country. And somebody has to fight, because if you don't fight, our country is just going to go down the tubes. This is election interference. This guy's a highly partisan person, and we can't let this stuff happen. So you should ask yourselves as professionals, I have a lot of respect for you, not all of you, but a lot of you, why is it that he didn't honor the decision of the appellate? And by the way, I believe it was a unanimous decision, right? It's a 5-0 decision, unanimous decision. And he said, I'm not going to honor it. Let's go to trial. This is a judge that should be disbarred. This is a judge that should be out of office. This is a judge that some people say could be charged criminally for what he's doing. He's interfering with an election, and it's a disgrace. Thank you very much.
Mr. Trump, why do you want to be here in person today?
Because I want to watch this witch hunt myself. I've been going through a witch hunt for years. But this is really now getting dirty between Jack Smith and between all of these DOJ people helping them along. This is a pure witch hunt for purposes of interfering with the elections of the United States of America. It's totally illegal. This judge should be disbarred. He shouldn't be allowed to be a judge. Thank you. Disgraceful trial put forward by an attorney general who's corrupt. We have murders going all over the city, all over the state at a record level. It's an epidemic, and they waste their time on this. With banks that were very happy, they got all their money back. They weren't defrauded. I've been defrauded. With a judge that ruled that a building and a property is worth $18 billion, $18 million. When in fact it's worth over $1 billion, probably $1.5 billion. It may be worth anything. When many properties which I sold are worth much more than were listed in the financial statements, like double and triple. All you have to do, and we're wasting our time on this trial with a Democrat judge from the clubhouses. It's a disgrace. They ought to look for the murderers and the killers that are all over New York, killing people, and the violent crime that's being committed in our city and our state is disgraceful, and we're going to be here for months with a judge that already made up his mind. It's ridiculous. He's a Democrat judge, he's an operative, and it's ridiculous. Other than that, things went very well.
What are you going to have for lunch? Will you come back after lunch?
Probably. Well, I think that was very good. That last 5 minutes was outstanding because the judge actually conceded that the statute of limitations that we won at the Court of Appeals is in effect. Therefore, about 80% of the case is over. I was going to come out and say that, as you know, we're not entitled to a jury, which is pretty unusual in the United States of America, so I think it's very unfair that I don't have a jury, but the judge's last statement was very fair, and if I read it right, I'll let perhaps one of the lawyers speak to it. But Cliff, maybe you'll speak to it if you would. But the way I interpret that, and the way everyone else in the room seems to interpret that, is that the statute of limitations is a very real thing in this country. And that would be about 80% of this case would be over. Could somebody speak to that, please? Cliff, you want to talk about that?
Sure. Based on the judge's comments, at the end of the trial today, it would appear that he is agreeing that all of the transactions that closed prior to 2014 are now out of the case.
Which is about 80% of the case. And it's also something that we won on appeal, but was not accepted by this court, but now seems to be accepted by this court. As far as the jury is concerned, it's much different now, I must tell you, than it was 20 minutes ago. We were going to come out and complain that, in this country you're entitled to a jury. But we very much appreciate the judge's decision today, or his statement today, on statute of limitations, which is a very big thing. There's a limited time period. And we did nothing wrong. And if you look at the statements, they showed that even in 2011, I guess the number was $258 million in cash. A very strong company. I don't believe we really, maybe I wouldn't do a couple of deals or something, but I wouldn't have even needed to go to banks. Banks loved our business, they loved our deals, they weren't defrauded, they lost no money, they made money, they had the finest attorneys that there are. Frankly, their attorneys were better than my attorneys. And they made a lot of money, and they considered me a very good client. I paid them back on time, on schedule. There was no default. They never even sent me a default letter. Not one. For years, never got a default letter. And there's no case here. There's no victim. The banks aren't a victim. The insurance companies are a victim. Everybody got paid. It's a terrible, terrible thing. This was for politics. Now, it has been very successful for them because they took me off the campaign trail. Because I've been sitting in a courthouse all day long instead of being in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, or a lot of other places I could be at. This is a horrible situation for our country. It's never happened before. It's election interference. They're interfering with the presidential election of 2024, and the people of our country see it. But this was a big, I say surprise, but it was a great credit to the court that the judge was willing to do this. He sort of overruled himself. And I greatly respect that. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Are you coming back tomorrow?
We may. I'd love not to. I'd love to be campaigning instead of doing this. I built a great company. That's one thing people are seeing. All the way back to 2011. And today, it's much bigger and much better and even much more liquid. That was $258 million for a real estate development. That's a lot of money. That was in 2011. Today, it's much more than that, much, much more. I built a great company and did great things for New York, and they should respect that. I've employed thousands and thousands of people in New York, and they should respect that. The Attorney General of this state is a disgrace. Letitia James is a disgrace. She's a disgrace to our country and to the state of New York. She should focus on all of the violent crime and the murders going on in New York, not on somebody that paid back the banks in full without a default, and in many cases paid them back early. Thank you very much, everybody.
Here to comment, take it.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe to Happen Just Now for more content about accountability on our public officials and policies and procedures.